Chap. Today we'll be going over chapters 41 through the conclusion in Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. And David, you are our fearless leader, so take it away.
Yes. So starting off, chapter 41, why do rich people go bankrupt? So he kind of talks through a few different things here. So there's about six that he mentioned. So one, they don't know how to handle it. So essentially, they're using old money habits for new money problems. Then emotional euphoria. So as soon as you get a lot of money, you get that emotional rush and you're like, man, like I must be getting smarter now, where in actuality, he's saying, they're starting to get more dumb. Then three, saying no to family, yourself, and the people they love. So for me personally, that's probably my hardest one, especially saying no to family for me. Then also he talks about uneducated investing, which he talks about how to invest in a more educated way throughout the book. And then, five, fear of losing increases because essentially at that point, the more you gain, now there's a bigger fear of losing. And then, just not knowing the difference between good and bad expenses. Is there anything you guys would add to that list, maybe? So, for instance, I was thinking, so he talks about it later, but I don't think he mentions it. But, essentially not having a plan for not only your when your business gets more money, but when you personally get more money. What about you guys? You think anything else maybe he could have added, or do you think, well, and do any of these kind of hit home for you guys?
Definitely the saying no to me one. When you were saying that, and you said family,
Right.
like it's very nice of you. But for me, it's like, oh, look we're making more money, so we should buy a more expensive house. Okay, that makes sense. We can do that. And then before you know,
Right.
you still got the same accommodations, but a lot more money going out. And so I saw that one as probably my personal weakness. But I think you're right. We're not having a plan is definitely a train wreck idea of going right to zero fast, because you can't have it's gonna be your weakness. I think the mentality of we got to save all this money goes in first. And so now you're trying to save your money, and then you're thinking that you got to grow and expand, so you got to spend, and it's easy to go down both paths and then fail in the end.
Right.
Yeah. For me, I would say not budgeting probably needs to be added to that, and not watching your dollars very, very closely. I don't think he really hits on that too much. And that kind of follows having a plan. I mean, even budgeting, Craig and I, we look at our expenses and we look at what goes out. Well, I came across a charge the other day and I'm like, why am I being charged this? Well, I went back and looked. I've been charged $60 every year for the last 4 years through Microsoft. And I never connected the dots because I was paying a personal Microsoft fee in June. And then I was paying the business Microsoft fee in like December.
Exactly.
And so I just saw an annual subscription, and never, because it was so far apart from the last one, I never really, and I think that, those little things add up to big things. And I think if you have a budget and you look at those dollars and you look at where they're going, helps to kind of plug those holes. Because to me, what makes you lose money the fastest is holes in your budget and holes in your financials. And so I think he maybe could have talked a little more on that as well. Now, as far as my own personal thorn in my side, I would say much like everybody else, it's family, and it's not extended family. It's all those stupid little ankle biters that we created ourselves.
Right. So
how do you say no to them? It's so hard.
one thing that you brought up, Laura, so the budgeting and not watching your money, so I think all of that kind of falls under cash management. He talks about cash management, but he doesn't mention it as a reason that people don't necessarily do well, because that's a good point. It's like, if you're not managing your cash, I mean,
It's
especially
managing
if you build a team and you don't have cash management, that's an open door for fraud. you know, so like, and you'll have people to do it. You'll find that one out. So is there anything in this chapter that really kind of stuck out to you guys outside of what we just talked about?
Let me go look at the name of the chapter so I can re-jog my memory on.
It was why do rich people go bankrupt?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Anything that stuck out, I just think, again, a lot of what he talks about is over my head in this book, and I feel like every week it's just the same. Thank you. It's just the same comment over and over and over again. It's just reiterating the things that we need to do. I mean, I think it's crazy, but you go win the lottery and win, $400 million, and in 5 years you're broke. And so even the lottery winners have money managers that the lottery gives you now. So if you win a big pot in the lottery, they actually will set you up with an attorney who helps you with estate planning. I mean, I'm sure you pay them out the wazoo, but I guess at that point you can afford it. But they have an attorney that they set you up that helps with like estate planning and investments and that kind of stuff. But they also set you up with a company that helps you learn how to navigate the management of that large of a sum of money, so that in 10 years, from an economics perspective, I mean, $400,000 by one person dumped into the economy in 5 to 10 years is great. But then they're back living, paycheck to paycheck, or even worse. And I think in this chapter, he talked a lot, or not a lot, but he kind of kept coming back to make sure you're buying assets,
right,
and not liabilities. And so I think that's, before I spend money right now, I'm like, what is this? And I think it was nice to have a more robust and more clear definition of what an asset and a liability really is. And I think he did a good job in this book of kind of defining those, because I would have argued till I was blue in the face before reading this book that my house, it is an asset, because it's gaining equity. It's gaining 6% at minimum year over year. Therefore, it's making me money, but it's not making me money I can spend today. Right? It's not, whereas my house in Louisiana is a phenomenal asset because I cash flow 50% of what I spend. So it's a huge asset. I mean, we're making based on a percentage, we're not retiring off of it, but for it to cost me 900 and make me 500, those are good numbers.
Right.
Yeah. When I think in our scenarios, the three of us and Steve, we're not going to become rich overnight. It's going to be a slow plan of, things that we're doing today and next month and the following month that, we're going to build that, hopefully become rich and step by step. And as opposed to, I don't think in our plans right now, anywhere we can land on multi-million dollars of income overnight, hopefully. But, right now it looks, maybe I need to set my goals higher.
Well, I think that's a good point though, Natalie, right? That he talks about in this book, that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I think a lot of us feel like people, they get wealthy overnight, but that's because we don't see the part of the iceberg that's under the water. We only see that little triangle popping out.
Yeah, when they buy the Lamborghini, then it's like, whoa, how did that happen?
It happened last night.
Exactly. Good night at the casino.
So before I jump into the next chapter, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting, and it was like a nice kind of correlation for me, but it was like, he even talks about sometimes he'll follow behind investors, I guess, and kind of watch for signs to see if they're purchasing liabilities more than assets. And one of the ones he mentioned was, I'll look to see if someone divorced their spouse and then went to go get someone younger. And I'm like, oh, wow. Because it's like, if you think about it from that standpoint, it's almost like you're completely starting over on a relationship that probably was already giving you value. And he's already seeing that. And I'm like, wow, like that's a whole nother way to think about like, assets versus liability, those good expenses versus those bad expenses. But as we know, all of us are getting rich. Are we prepared to give back? So one thing he talks about. So what do you guys think about when Kiyosaki kind of talks about the foreshadow of, now these newer generations are getting to the point where they're about to retire, and he was saying, there's almost going to be a sense of peer pressure to have a lot and not give back. What do you guys think about that as we kind of live through it?
Well, he was saying the baby boomers are gonna, have that pressure to give back, and it made me wonder, when was this book wrote, because I'm not sure what age range they're at now, but that was eye-opening and really, kind of exciting that they're taking it in their own hands of giving back to the communities, like, and not expecting the government to take care of everyone like most people do.
Right.
Well, I think that perspective gets us back with what this country was actually founded on.
Right.
Right. This country was not founded on the government taking care of everybody. Right. At one point in this lifetime, and we probably were all born right as that was shifting, but at one point, churches, right, tithing to your church was huge, because if you were a homeless family or a woman who was getting divorced, and 60 years ago a woman getting divorced didn't have the same opportunity she has today, you went to the church, right? And the church a lot of times had systems, and to me it was a better system, because the church would have systems to help that person get back on their feet, right? They would have things in place that would teach them how to get a job, and that would teach them, there would be people within the church that would teach them how to manage their money, and there would be people in the church that would, teach them how to organize their lives and that kind of stuff. And now we're in a society where the only thing these people get is the government. And if you go to the government, because the churches don't have it, it's really sad. As a Scout mom, we are consistently getting reached out to by like North Fulton Charities. They have a food bank, and they're always out of food because nobody really donates. There's just not that, they have some food, and it's in North Fulton, so it's at least got a decent amount, better than areas that are not as well off as North Fulton. So for me, I hope that this comes back full circle, and I hope it does start to set a precedence with others. I don't think you should feel pressure, though, to tithe and to give. I think that should come from your heart.
Right.
Otherwise, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And I think if you start to spend money for the wrong reasons, I think that's mismanagement and misnavigation of your budget. And I think that could be a potential negative for someone, right? Either A, they give too much, they give to the wrong, a group they don't really want to give to, whatever negative connotation comes from that. So I don't like the idea of there being peer pressure, but I do hope we get back to that mentality, and people stop depending on the government to help them and start reaching out to groups that are set up better. That's kind of my thought on that, I guess.
Right. Honestly, so I feel like, if kind of from reading this book, if you take like that mindset, just, the kind of seeing the value in giving back outside of, just in the household or just with your family, it's like, yes, that right there benefits the economy. To your point, like, if a church is able to kind of help out some of these, a lot of the times you get better support than you would from the government, because it's coming from something different, and then those, to your point, those systems are different. So we're not seeing those same systems that the government's using over and over and over that doesn't always work. And so I feel like if you take that and mix that with, so the chapter from last week, chapter 40, where he talks about, are you the next billionaire?
Yes.
In that, it's a sense, right? And so in that, you take that mindset and you get it in front of as many eyes as possible, because it's like, I almost feel like you take those two and you marry them together, and that's kind of that's how I look at it. But getting into the conclusion, or kind of moving into the conclusion. So one last question I had, what do you guys think about the story where his friends kind of getting upset, saying, oh man, you're turning just like
The public
turning into
attorney.
Mike. Right. Right. And so he's like, you guys are so greedy. The rich is always, trying to take all this stuff for themselves where we're out here, being poor. And he's just getting so angry and angry until the next day. And then he shows him essentially his idea to get rich and shows him how he's actually trying to help people that want the help. What do you guys kind of think through that as you were kind of reading the story? Did it kind of remind you of any experiences, or what thoughts came up for y'all?
It was definitely interesting, and I kind of appreciate the story because it's so true. If you offer advice to people, and if they don't take it, like, you're not gonna get advice from me again. And
Right.
so I appreciate that they did that same scenario and showed the attorney had said, even he's like, well, I help a family and then get them on their feet, and then 6 months later they're back in the system again, and here I am trying to help them again. And so he makes a great point that he's not trying to make people rich. He's giving people the option that if they want it, to go get it themselves.
Right.
And I really love that approach.
Mhm. Right.
So I appreciate the way that he brought to fruition that if someone's poor, it's their fault. Right? Because I think a lot of people really do have, I mean, I remember when my mom kind of had the aha moment that people with money aren't bad, because she felt like people in her past and people she was close to, people she loved, because they were family or friends or whatever, she loved them, but she felt like they were bad people because she felt like they had money and she didn't want to be like them in the way that they acted. And she felt like it was the money that drove them
Right.
to behave that way. But it's never the money. If someone's greedy, they can be poor. They can be rich. That's their personality. And the money is not what changes somebody. And a lot of times, I think it was very good that he did point this out as well. Like, when you look at people like Oprah, when you look at people like Donald Trump, when you look at people like Bill Gates, there's a few of those names I just named I cannot fucking stand. But I can get behind who they get, the fact that they at least try to give back. Right. I may not be in agreement with the group they're supporting,
Right.
but they're at least supporting something. And I do believe the more you're willing to give, the more you get. And I think every rich person understands that law of attraction and
Right.
that universal. I mean, it's true. If you walk around like this, your hand's never going to fill up. If you walk around like this, yes, stuff's going to go out of it, but it's going to come in it. And so I think it was I wish it was taught in more books that being wealthy is not what makes you a bad person or greedy.
Right.
Well, how about
That's
the
your
flip side though? Okay, if you're wealthy, you're a jerk. So if you're poor, you're super nice. Like, I think we can all know some people that don't have a lot of money and do not fit in the nice bucket. So that was like the opposite I quickly thought of. And
I will be honest. I actually think people that have less tend to be more greedy.
Well, so if you think about it, I feel like his products doing so well almost kind of support that, right? Because like what did he say? The people that want to get rich, it's a resource for them. He's the best-selling author, right? There's a lot of
Right.
greedy folks or potentially greedy, right? So it's
Right.
like I imagine that's very true, especially with the we know about the scarcity mindset, and it's
Right.
like the more scarce things seem to you, I mean, honestly, that kind of follows suit, just being stingy.
Well, sure, because if you're in that mindset, you don't believe if you open your hand that stuff will come into it. You only believe that it will go out. And so
Right.
you live in this weird realm of
Running
not
around with
reality.
your fist up. Yeah. Running around with your fist up. I'm gonna
Yeah.
fight you. So, last question for the entire book. I think we usually ask this at the end. What's one takeaway from the whole book that I think you guys will kind of, take into your personal or professional or business lives and, for growth?
I think one thing that I put a huge asterisk on was about becoming a corporation and not as a sole proprietor, and then starting there. So that's definitely a huge. And I also bought his original book
Yes.
in my purse.
Have you never read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
you'll love it. It's a good book. Yeah,
And you'll have a
it's a
different
really good
perspective
book.
too.
Yeah,
So
it's
lot
a
of
really
stuff.
good book.
Yeah, and then I need to read this one again.
Yeah, this book was hard to read. If you go read it again, don't take me along that ride. God damn, that was a hard book to get through. I had like 3 hours to listen. I was dead tired yesterday. I was angry by the time I got home, but I did finish. So for me is having an exit strategy. That was probably my biggest, as I was thinking about the Lerman team, historic homies, what I think I'm probably going to end up calling Phoenix. I think, I don't know. I want to use the word Phoenix somewhere in my life for
Get a
another.
URL for that, David.
Right. But I don't have an end strategy. Like, as I look at my real estate business in my head, like, what is the end strategy with that? Well, when I stopped selling real estate, I mean, I look at, some of these agents, and I've talked to some people who have done stuff. Sometimes people sell their database. Sometimes people will merge their database with another larger group or whatever, and then they get residual income for X number of years or whatever. And so I'm probably going to start looking at, what do those options look like? I don't know that I can make that decision today, because if my children decide, hey, I want to be a realtor, I've got one that's going to be an architect. I've got one that's going for interior design. So we might be able to commingle in businesses, but no one said, hey, listen, I want to be a realtor, right? Like, no one has said that. But if I do, then my end goal for the business would not be to necessarily sell it, but would be to work with that child to come up with what their end goal would be, right? Do they want to potentially sell it? Do they want to work it? Because in 20 years, will there be realtors as we sit in these chairs today? I don't think so. I think the real estate world will evolve greatly, and I think realtors will still be necessary, because AI can never do what a human can do on comps and that, but I think what's going to start happening is these modern teams are going to take over, where, there's one person at the top and they've got 5, 6, 7, 800 people underneath working them. And I think that's, as a solo agent, it's going to become more and more and more difficult, because with the growth of social media, it's going to become more and more easy for those influencers to take over more than their fair share of the market. Right. And so for me, I think having that end result, and I started thinking about the other companies that I own, like my holdings companies, right? Well, that's pretty easy to come up with an end result. Are you going to hold the property? You're going to sell the property? Like, what are you going to do with that? But just having that plan. And then number two, I'm looking at businesses differently. Historic Homies was one of the ones I was thinking about, and not so much Historic Homies, but more of a spinoff, because I think at some point Historic Homies may be able to be sold for our database, right? For our resources and what we have in there.
In 7
And
years.
say again?
In 7 years.
Right.
At least.
But then the next one, like, I really do want to teach people how to flip and renovate and invest in properties and that kind of stuff. And that will become another business as it evolves. And with that one, I think that could be something that could even almost go public. As like, okay, out of my 3 businesses that I've currently got, I guess there's 4 because we've got the holdings companies, but out of the businesses that I've owned, which one am I going to hold forever? Which one am I going to sell? And which one am I going to take public? Because if I take it public, then that just becomes a paycheck for my kids for and their heirs and their, that just becomes a paycheck forever until the board decides to fuck it up. Hopefully I'm dead and gone. And so I think the business of teaching people how to buy and sell and flip houses, I mean, I think if you do that correctly, I think that could go public easily. And then that works in line with, creating hedge funds that people are dumping their money in to be part of the, the investment process. They don't want to buy and sell and do the work, but hey, they want to make money off of that, right? So to me, I kind of defined what direction I think each business may be headed in. And I would say in the next 3 years, I want an end game for all of them. I want that to be way more defined. I never once thought about my end game. Starting to with the real estate and the investments and the flips and the rehabs and the short and long-term rentals, but not the actual business. So that was probably my biggest takeaway, is have an end game.
Beautiful. So I would say my biggest takeaway is going to be that BI triangle. So I'm probably going to come up with some kind of like worksheet or even something similar to start implementing into my business plans. Because honestly, I mean, the way he kind of broke it down, it's very simple. And it's something I feel like you could just add to a business plan. And I mean, the way it's kind of set up, I feel like it would be that thing to take my businesses to that, that next level. So
no, that was a really good model. Thank you for finding that again.
Yeah. Yes.
Great.
So
I still haven't
perfect.
looked at it.
Well, that brings us to the end of Rich Dad's Guide to Investing.
Great job.
Yay! So Craig is going to join us on our next book.
Ooh.
Yes.
I know. So I'm super excited. Got him involved. He didn't want to join in this one because he felt like when he decided he wanted to join book club, we were too awkwardly in the middle of the book. I was like, no way, we can catch up listening to it on the way to the lake. And he was like, no, I just don't. This the next one. So he will be joining.
Sweet.
So that is exciting. And I believe we decided, was it Natalie was going to take the next book?
Yep. So I brought a couple options because I'm not sure which ones you guys have read. And I just want to make sure, is Craig aware of the rules of the club?
Meaning?
Like no skipping meetings, even if it's
okay, Steve.
You know what?
Yes.
Maybe we should write these down.
Make everybody sign in blood.
LOL, yes.
And if you break one, we're gonna have a vote.
Right. Off the island.
Vote you off the island. Yep. Okay, so the 3 books that I picked out, and I'm sure you guys have heard them all, and if you've already read them, then I'll
give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up my list, and I will give me 1 second. Let me get something pulled up for you, so I'm gonna add them to the list. I never went back and found out what re-looked at the books that they talked about in the last chapter and the last book we read. I was supposed to do that, but I did not do that, so I suck. I apologize.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Laura,
keep you in the club.
Sorry, I've got 2 different files that it could be in. Okay, what are your 2 books?
Okay, so the first one is Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. Have you guys heard of that one at all? It comes up on a lot of lists.
Millionaire Real Estate Investment?
Investor.
Oh, that makes more sense.
I may have heard of it, but I haven't read it.
No? Okay. The other one is Tax-Free Wealth, which is kind of inspirational from this book.
Okay. We have not read that one.
That one's by Tom Wheelwright. And then the third one is important for us entrepreneurs, Profit First by Mike Michalowski.
So Profit First is, hey, that's from the movie.
With
So
one eye.
profit, right, exactly. So here is, let me share my screen. Here is what we have read.
Okay.
So these are the 9, 10. So we've read 10 books since we started this.
Wow.
Turn up.
That's really exciting.
That's
And
great.
the three that you suggested, we have not read. Profit First was on my list. This is just my list. This is not a compiled list of everybody else's. I'm just trying to kind of keep up with
Yeah. Recommendations. Go ahead.
with recommendations, and like if something gets mentioned or whatever, I try to add it here just so we have a list of books. So I added your 2 that weren't on here. I'm good with any. I don't really have a preference. I will be really honest, and I hope Gary Keller never watches this, but sometimes his books are written very, very, very much like a
Manual.
textbook,
Yeah.
and they can be really hard to get through. So it might be a good idea to go to something that is not as difficult to get through, since we just got through one that was,
I was just about to say the last one was written like a textbook.
it was a little bit more. But again, I don't know enough about the other 2 to know if one is better than the other as far as textbooky or not textbooky. So I am good with any of them.
Well, let me see here. So I got some reviews on all of them. And I thought
My
one of them
vote
was
is for
more
tax-free
conversational.
and
Your vote is what?
tax-free and Profit First. I can't decide. I'll probably also read The Millionaire or Investor, but I also am fine with us not doing another textbook.
Well, that's why I haven't gotten through MREA. I can't get I guess if I listen to it, I could force myself to get through it.
Oh, is that Gary
But
Keller too?
it is. MREA is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Got it.
So it's the exact same book except agent over investor. And he's in the process of writing a new MREA book. And so when I started it 7 years ago, everybody was like, don't read it. He's coming out with a new book this year. Well, 7 years later, he hasn't come out with his new MREA.
Oh, no. Let's do the tax-free wealth. I think
Okay.
that will, that'll give us about 9 months to get prepared for April.
I like that.
Tax humor.
Move this puppy up here.
Let's see how long it is.
Okay, tax-free wealth. So let me go into move, please.
Are we about to buy this bad boy?
Huh?
Are we about to buy this bad boy? I got credits on my account. Absolutely.
I know that last one went a little long, so I think I accrued 2 credits.
And who is the author on that one?
His name is Tom, and then one word, Wheelwright. WHEELWRIGHT.
Okay. Let's see here.
Oh, he's a CPA.
He is. You know about those CPAs? They're a little dry. No, I'm just kidding. This one's about 9 hours long.
Sweet. All right.
Tax-free wealth. Why does it say Rich Dad Advisor? Is he somehow?
Oh, so he has a franchise, Rich Dad. So he actually franchises his name.
Smart.
Got it. So is he somehow like hooked up with Robert?
From a franchise standpoint. So I would imagine Robert probably wrote the overall structure of what to write, and then the guy filled in I don't know how they have it set up.
Got it. I don't know if I have you guys all set up as book club. Where is everybody going to be? I don't know that I've done a book club hashtag for KV course. So I will send out an email so Craig and Steve know what book we're reading.
Bet.
Excellent.
Should we add Craig too?
I will. I'll add Craig. I don't think I've done a hashtag book club in my CRM. So I'm just going to go in and do hashtag book club, and that way I can just send an email quick to everybody.
Bet.
Okay, and then I'll take a
review.
review. I'm sorry.
My face looks really big.
It doesn't.
Let me do that. I'll take a look at it and see how far we should read the first.
Oh,
Well, then I'll
really
send
quick.
out a regular email. I'll send out an email from I won't do one from my CRM. I'll do one from my email, and then you can just reply all with what chapters to read.
Okay.
Does that
So
work?
next week, I will be out of the country
Are you celebrating
and
4th of
not
July?
available. Huh?
Celebrating 4th of July or something?
No, I'm celebrating my marriage.
Well,
So
congratulations.
we're going to Cartagena. But I won't be on the call next week, but I will read the chapters, whatever they are.
Let's not meet next week if you guys don't mind. I have a feeling Steve might be busy.
Oh, that works for me. That works for me. That's July 4th, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, let's plan to meet the next week. That makes sense because you're right, Natalie. That is a holiday, and I
Okay,
have a
sweet.
feeling that everybody, David, you just got lucked out there, my friend.
Right, I'm sitting here like, darn, like Craig's joining the next one and I won't even see it. Like,
Lucky.
Fucking holidays. Damn Independence Day.
Yeah, we might be
right,
a few cocktails in by noon that day.
Mhm,
right.
mhm.
Might be a funny episode.
It would be.
Yeah. We would definitely have some fun comments.
So Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright.
Got it. All right. Well, I will send
Alrighty.
out an email. Natalie, go ahead and reply all to whatever chapters you want us to read.
Okay.
And I am going to get back on schedule with this fucking hellish day that I've got going on right now.
Will you have fun with that?
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
See y'all.